Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live webinar, 10 really cool things you can do with N2WS Backup and Recovery Free Edition, brought to you by N2WS and NWN. So we have an amazing turnout today. Thanks so much for everyone for taking the time out of your busy day. And you're certainly in the right place, particularly if you have or will have workloads on AWS and want to know how you can secure that data for absolutely free and utilize many of N2WS's free features. And we're also offering a gift for all live attendees today. Sebastian, you can... So all live attendees today will receive $50 in AWS infrastructure credits, and those will be sent to your inbox along with the recorded webinar in approximately 7 business days. And remember, throughout the webinar, you can use the question section on the Zoom platform, and we'll designate around 15 minutes or so for Q&A, so we'll be very, very happy to hear from you. And we're very pleased to present our speakers today. From the NWN side, we have David Ball. He is an IT consultant with over 15 years of experience designing, implementing, and documenting data center solutions. And he has deep experience in numerous technologies such as VMware, EMC, Veeam, and AWS. And he comes to us with a really interesting perspective, particularly on how solution providers can optimize and empower their clients in the cloud. And also be sure to check out his blog, Virtual Bonzo, as well as his Twitter handle, David Jason Ball. And from the N2WS side, we turn to Sebastian Straub, systems engineer, with over 20 years of experience specializing in enterprise security and identity management solutions. He worked previously at the Department of Defense, Dell, the FBI, and Northrop Grumman. And with that, I will turn it over to David and Sebastian.
All right, Jessica, thank you very much. All right, well, let's start with a quick overview of N2WS. So we were founded in 2012. Our first version of the product was released in 2013, which means we've been around for quite some while. This isn't a version 1.0. We are the top-rated AWS marketplace solution. We are headquartered in West Palm Beach, Florida. Our development center is in Haifa, Israel, and we have satellite offices worldwide on every continent. We are cloud-native technology. We're purpose-built for AWS, and it's all distributed through an AMI through the AWS marketplace. And now, David.
Hey, thanks, Sebastian. I am David Ball, and I'm with NWN. And so NWN, what we do, we help businesses solve problems through technology. We were established in 2000, and we're an IT services solutions company that provides services in the data center, networking services, security, IoT, collaboration, end user computing. And we have over 300 engineers and project managers with over 750 certifications. We are also a managed service provider and a talent acquisition services provider. If you need somebody, we can help you find that person. We've been an investor in cloud services since 2010, and we have invested in AWS because of its maturity, its elasticity, flexibility, and portability. We're headquartered in Waltham, Massachusetts, and we have 10 offices throughout the United States.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit why you need to protect your AWS environment. Well, there's numerous reasons. Well, first off, the high price of downtime. The oops factor. Don't you absolutely hate hearing this when somebody says, oops, the human error? I applied a patch that didn't work, a new version of an application that doesn't work right, and we need to roll back. And then also, of course, AZ failure. It does happen just as much as EBS failure of the data. And ransomware. Europol says ransomware is the biggest threat to corporations in 2018 and going forward. Right now, there's about 2,500 varieties of ransomware, and 38 new varieties appear daily. Then also compliance reasons. Maybe you're the type of business where you must be able to provide past data. Subpoenas happen every day. And the cloud doesn't actually protect your data. AWS provides the virtual hardware and protects that infrastructure. But the data within the cloud, that's still your responsibility. And a lot of customers that we speak to, they don't actually realize this. So what you're seeing here, that's the AWS shared responsibility model. It's a graphic that's literally coming straight off the Amazon website. So at the bottom in orange, that's what AWS is responsible for. The hardware, the regions, the availability zones, also the software, the computing software, and the actual storage for all of this. And up there on top, that's the customer's responsibility. So the operating system, patching, applications, the data, the configurations, well, that's still all your problem. So you need to take care of that data in the cloud. You can have access 24/7 to your data. So the first one is flexible automated backup policies. Backup policies in any interval, fully managed pruning of old backups, and you get to choose what you want to keep. So you really only pay for what you want to keep and not some orphaned old backups. Also, recover everything in seconds from any type of outage. Every second counts in a disaster recovery situation, and your data or your customer's data can be restored in seconds, not hours. No data ever leaves the AWS cloud. We don't process your data. The data never flows through Cloud Protection Manager, and how's that for security? It's easy, efficient, and effective. You can have it all without having to compromise. And we always like to say the promise of the cloud delivered. AWS provides the first piece of the puzzle. So AWS provides the APIs, the EBS snapshots, regions, and availability zones, and definitely durable storage, and also the Lambda scripting. But as I said, it's only the first piece of the puzzle because N2WS enhances everything through a simple and easy to learn graphical user interface. Also file level recovery, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that later as well. Disaster recovery at the drop of a hat, auditing, reporting, and alerting. So you're not alone with what you're doing in the cloud. You can actually prove that certain things are happening. And last but not least, also application consistent backup, which is so really important for your database servers. So let me introduce you to N2WS backup and recovery. Operational backups. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Flexible backup policies, minutes, hours, days, weeks, or months. This will drastically reduce your RPO. You're in complete control of all of your backed up data. Also, as I already mentioned, it's distributed as an Amazon machine image, an AMI, which you can just simply access through the AWS Marketplace. Easy to deploy, and a few configuration steps, you can actually make CPM your own. You can recover within moments in other regions, countries, or continents. And as I already mentioned, easy to use interface, easy to teach, easy to delegate, full featured with actionable data, and of course, a REST API. So, dipping your toes in the cloud. Are you new to AWS? Well, you can deploy test instances free with the AWS free tier. And I want to warn you, it's like crack. It's so easy and convenient. Then once you have your data in the cloud, well, are you new to backup in the cloud? I know it sounds very salesy, but David and I are technical resources, and we really just want to introduce you to this amazing product, which is actually free. And now, in no particular order, 10 really cool things to do with N2WS Backup and Recovery Free Edition. David, take it away.
Thank you, Sebastian. Now, being an IT consultant for an IT services company exposes me to a lot of technologies. And in the context of this specific webinar, I see customers using many methods to ensure their resources are backed up. Anything from homegrown PowerShell scripts to third-party applications to managed service providers. And one of the more popular backup applications I see is Veeam Backup and replication. Perhaps some of you are even using it today. Well, why is Veeam so popular? And though each backup project NWN delivers can have its own challenges, Veeam is, generally speaking, easy to deploy, easy to configure, easy to manage, and easy to restore data from. Now, to share a quick personal fact about myself, I have 6 kids, and I share that simply to say that my life can be chaotic. And so I endeavor to find the easy way to do virtually everything. And when NWN made the decision to begin focusing on helping our customers transition to the public cloud, I began to search for easy to use public cloud backup solutions. And this search led me to N2WS. Now, I was searching for a solution that would allow me to easily back up EC2 instances, and I found it and so much more with N2WS. And as you can see from the slide, not only can N2WS easily back up your EC2 instances, it can back up native AWS services like Redshift and RDS and Aurora and DynamoDB. With DynamoDB, N2WS can automate the backup and recovery of DynamoDB tables so that you can gain efficiency by avoiding the pitfalls of attempting to do a manual backup setup. N2WS provides a means for you to set your backup and forget it. Serverless computing. Everybody's talking about serverless computing, which allows you to build and run applications in the cloud. Now, N2WS is designed to provide seamless data protection for serverless applications within AWS and help you manage your data effectively. Now, you've heard that N2WS is easy. Sebastian said it was like crack, and he's right. But I want to plead with you, please don't confuse being easy with a lack of features and functionality. N2WS is not just easy, but it's powerful. And if I had the power to plant one thought in your head, it would be that the free version of N2WS is not a scaled back or trimmed down version of a premium product, but it's a premium product made free. On to thank you so much, Sebastian. So flexible scheduling. In any backup solution, especially EC2 backups based on EBS snapshots, balancing the number and frequency of snapshots versus the need for your preferred RPO can be tricky. And when talking about AWS specifically, determining the optimal mix is vital so as to save your organization cost on keeping EBS snapshots. But with N2WS, you can create a schedule or multiple schedules that meet the needs of your RPO objectives, as well as minimizing as much as is possible the number of EBS snapshots that are retained. With backup schedule, you can back up some instances or resources every 15 minutes. You can back up every 4 hours. You can back up once a day. You can pick specific days. So you have an incredible amount of flexibility when scheduling your backup jobs with N2WS. Back to you, Sebastian.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the backups. So backup efficiently with EBS snapshots. We save you time and money, but how we prepare these backups. Some customers that I work with, they produce backups in 5-minute intervals, which is great for their RPO and doable because we're just backing up what has changed. A backup takes a fraction of a second, and you don't have any service outage or degradation on those instances while they're being backed up. Then also cross-region disaster recovery. remember the days of Iron Mountain where a driver would come at the end of the day, pick up your tapes and drive them physically across coast to coast once a week perhaps? Well, welcome to the 21st century. It takes 3 mouse clicks to transfer your data securely and safely from one data center to another. 3 mouse clicks and you just moved your entire corporate backups across 3 time zones within seconds. David, this one's yours.
Yes, near instant recovery of a single file or entire volumes or even entire instances. And in regards to data recovery capabilities, N2WS offers near instant recovery of EC2 instances, volumes, databases, and even individual files. And I'm sure everyone on this call or webinar knows that disasters and outages come in all shapes and sizes. It can be as large as the collapse of your entire environment to a single EC2 instance, or as seemingly small as your boss screaming at you to restore their most important Excel spreadsheet ever. But each scenario is a disaster. And with N2WS, with the click of a button, you can easily recover from disasters, both great and small. Now, as a public service message, please don't wait until disaster to test your restore, to test your backups. Do that before chaos breaks out. Tag scanning. So cloud environments such as AWS are based largely on automation. By using AWS APIs and scripts, entire compute environments can be dynamically created all over the world. And a common question that arises from customers is this: is there a way to ensure that dynamically created resources are backed up without manual intervention? And with N2WS, the answer is yes, that backup automation can be achieved by utilizing tags. N2WS uses a process called tag scanning to scan AWS resources with a CPM backup tag. And if a tagged resource with that key is identified, it will be automatically added to the backup policy specified as the value. The user or process deploying an AWS resource or service does not require any access to the N2WS system, and you can configure the AWS environment to disallow the creation of a given resource unless the backup tag exists to further ensure that any created resources are indeed backed up.
Right. Well, that brings us to the command line interface. N2WS has a RESTful API, which allows you to orchestrate entire recovery scenarios how you see fit. And you can also use the REST API to integrate into other third-party apps. For example, log consolidation, ticketing systems, anything you'd like to automate. That's what you would do with the RESTful API. The freezer. Well, the freezer allows me to take backup sets out of the pruning rotation. So what if I want to try a newly patched OS for a bit longer than my usual retention period? I can keep my backup sets safe in the freezer and restore them or delete them when I want to.
Reporting, alerts, and summaries. Now, I have found, and maybe you will agree, that the general belief is that a free version of anything really must have limited reporting capabilities. And again, I want you to remember that the free send alerts, notifications, and raw reporting data. Alerts, right? If a backup policy fails, you'll get an alert to tell you that it's not functioning so that your administrator can address the issue. If you have a third-party monitoring solution, you can use APIs to integrate it with N2WS to pull alerts from N2WS. You can even push alerts using SNS, and you'll get a daily summary from N2WS. That is a message that summarizes all current alerts in the system. Now, shortly after I tell people about this functionality, I'll surely hear this. Well, these features are cool for my admins, but what about my auditors? Is there some kind of log I can show them that contains more detailed information? And that answer as well is yes. N2WS has multiple CSV reports that detail what resources are backed up and which ones aren't, when a backup started and finished, what is its status when a snapshot was taken, et cetera, et cetera. So, and personally speaking, I have yet to receive an email or a call from an auditor stating that these reports provided insufficient data. And now for number one, I'm going to send it back to Sebastian.
Oh, thank you. Cloning. Remember the freezer we just talked about? It almost becomes a library of resources. So let's say I have multiple file servers and suddenly I need to spin up more of the same kind. Well, I can just simply use Cloud Protection Manager to start cloning instances. Or think staging environment. Everybody should have a staging environment. Hardly anybody does. And if they do, it's hardly ever in sync with the production environment because it's very difficult to do. But if I'm already using N2WS to perform the backups, how easy would it be to just simply use a cloning feature and then clone my entire production environment into another region and then just call it my staging environment? And now, we also have a bonus one. The N2WEC2 instance can back up itself. So all you would have to do is you can configure N2WS to back up itself, then spin up a new instance in a complete region outage simply from the marketplace. And in your disaster recovery region, you import the backup data, and in less than 90 seconds, you're absolutely completely recovered from that outage. All right, well, that brings us to demo time. This is where it gets interesting. Well, that's where we actually show you what the product looks like. So let me get started with the marketplace. And this is where you get a hold of Cloud Protection Manager. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is you choose the region where you'd like to spin up in. Hit the continue button, and then Cloud Protection Manager starts spinning up in your environment. That entire process only takes about 60 seconds. Once you go through the configuration settings, this is what Cloud Protection Manager looks like. I know, looks a little bit confusing, but trust me, it's actually a super simple product, just like David already told you about. And the first tab is my backup monitor. That's my single pane of glass. That's going to let you see all of the backups Cloud Protection Manager has performed across all regions and across all different AWS accounts. Next to that, you have policies and schedules. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you by showing you how to create schedules, but let's take a look at the policies. And this is where I can create new policies. I can assign a policy to an AWS account. I can assign a policy to an internal Cloud Protection Manager user or groups of users. So that gives me that multi-tenancy as well. Generations to save, this is where I decide, well, how many backups do I want to keep? And I can then associate it either to a single or multiple schedules. Once you create a policy, all you have to do is just simply define under backup targets what you actually want to back up. See, here I have a policy which backs up my Windows file server. There it is. But I can add additional resources to this backup policy. It's all done here on the right side of the screen. Now, the first one is add instances. It's almost the easy button because this will allow you to back up an entire instance plus all of the volumes that go along with an instance. I don't have to figure out which volumes do I need and which devices do I attach them to. More often than not, when I talk to prospective customers, they tell me they're blindware. They literally have Post-it notes on the side of their monitor telling them which volumes go with which instances. None of that here. It works like your brain. When you're thinking servers, you're probably thinking the entire entity. You're not thinking particular volumes. But if you really wanted to, you do have that option. So you can also back up standalone volumes. Our customers usually choose unattached volumes, data at rest, that sort of thing. You can also back up RDS databases, all of the different flavors, Aurora clusters, Redshift clusters, and DynamoDB tables. To add an instance, pretty simple. All I have to do is click on that plus button. I can choose the different regions that I have access to based on the policy we just created, and then I can choose the resources that I want to back up. And it's simple. All I have to do is tick box it, click Add Selected, and that's really all there is to it. From that point on, Cloud Protection Manager will start creating what we call operational backups of that data into the same region where the data is currently residing, which is pretty good. But it doesn't really give you disaster recovery capability because regions do go down. It does happen. So for that occasion, we also provide disaster recovery. You find that next to the backup targets button. That's the DR button. Once you turn it on and define how many times would you like to create a disaster recovery backups, preferably with every backup, then you choose which regions you'd like to perform a backup into. In my case, all of my production environment is located in Oregon, but if you wanted to, you can also perform backups into additional regions, and there's no limit to the number of regions. So if you want to prepare for an Earth-ending event, well, why not also create a backup in Canada and in Europe and, gosh, why stop there, Asia and South America? Down here, you also have the option to perform cross-account disaster recoveries. You're probably wondering, why would I want to perform a backup into another account? Well, that gives you the ability that if something really terrible happens, even to your AWS account, well, then you have another backup available in the other AWS account. Now, we also have the ability to perform application-consistent backups, and let me show you how the recovery of the data works. Because all the backups in the world aren't going to do you any good if it's very difficult and time-consuming to actually get the data back into play. So let's play through this. Let's say that Windows file server we just looked at, we want to recover this. So first thing is you take a look at your single pane of glass, the backup monitor. Then perhaps you want to start filtering it by just that particular data. And then you make a choice which backup set you'd like to recover. So I'm going to click on Recover. And because we did configure this with disaster recovery in mind, that's why we're seeing these three menus up here. I can either restore it to the region where the data originally came from, or I can also choose my disaster recovery region, in my case, North Virginia, or any other region you would have designated. I can also recover to a different AWS account, and I can also recover from a different account in case I configured a cross-account disaster recovery. These three menus are completely mix and match. I can create some crazy configurations, such as let's recover from my backup account into my original account into my disaster recovery region. That's actually doable, and some of our customers use Cloud Protection Manager as a migration tool to migrate data from one account to another or from one region to another. And then over here on the right side of the screen, those are my actual recover modes. We have three different modes. The first one is instance recovery. Same dumb joke from earlier, that's your easy button. That will recover the entire instance plus all of the volumes without me having to figure out how does it all fit together. Now, you also have the option to recover only the volumes. You would probably do that if the instance itself is still up and running and maybe just the data is corrupted. So here I also have the option to not only to recover the volumes, but also fully automatically attach the volumes and exchange them for the corrupted volumes. That's this feature right here. Also, if you have more than one volume, you get to choose which volumes you'd like to recover, which ones you wouldn't like to recover. And all of the information that you see here, this isn't for show. I can actually make changes to any of this. If I want to change the type or change the IOPS, I can do that as well. It's probably the least intrusive because nothing really changes as far as the original instance is concerned. VPC stays the same, subnet stays the same, IP address stays the same, and if there is a database on that instance, then even the connection string to the database would stay exactly the same. And then last but not least, that's also what David was talking about. It's that Explore functionality. Explore gives me the ability to drill into the currently selected backup set and only retrieve the folders and files that I actually need. So I don't have to recover the entire instance or have to recover the entire volume and start digging through that information. Also, we are still within the Cloud Protection Manager portal. Nobody needs to have access to your AWS infrastructure in order to perform backups and restores. Also, this happens to be a Windows server, but it doesn't matter at all. Cloud Protection Manager is completely OS agnostic. Doesn't care if it's Windows, doesn't care if it's Linux. It doesn't even care if the data that you're backing up is encrypted, because it has the ability to handle all of the KMS encryption keys on the back end completely transparently. All right, I would say let's perform a recovery, because after all, that's our claim to fame. So let's try that out. So I would say let's pick a database instance, because we did talk about database instances. So that's my Linux farm policy that happens to contain a SQL database. There it is. And now I'm going to choose to recover only that one instance, because this is a pick and choose. I don't have to recover everything in the policy. So I'm going to do instance recovery. That's going to give us a few more options here. So this is all of the metadata that we recorded. So VPC, subnet, security group. But if you wanted to, you can make changes to this. So I can spin it into a different VPC, into a different subnet. Remember, this is what I was talking about earlier with the cloning. You can just simply create a clone of the data in another subnet or in another VPC. I also have the option to choose a different security group, or maybe even make a change to an instance type. We also preserve tags across the backups as well. Now, in my case, my instance is still up and running, so I don't want to have an IP conflict. So let me blank this out. We're actually going to clone that instance. So I'm going to click on Recover Instance. It's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? You want to recover this instance? Sure, right in front of everybody. What's the worst that can happen? Let's find out. All right, there we go. Operation succeeded and one instance was launched. Now, if you're quick enough, I can actually show you what that looks like in my AWS infrastructure. All I have to do is just simply refresh that screen, and we'll be able to watch this data being reconstituted right in front of our eyes. There it is. All right, so it's still in pending, and it's probably going to stay like that for another 20, 25 seconds or so. You see that button here? That's still yellow. The moment that button turns green, because of a feature that Amazon calls the lazy loading feature, that instance will be fully functional and recovered. So in case of my SQL database, that means I can immediately start hitting it with SQL transactions. I'm not going to time out, and it's not going to get any errors, as long as that button is green. That instance is fully recovered now. Now, of course, the recovery time is largely dependent on the size of the instance itself. Big surprise there. But we've done some extensive testing with Cloud Protection Manager, and CPM has the ability to recover a 14 terabyte database instance in about 3.5 minutes. We're the fastest solution out there. There's absolutely nothing faster than CPM. And in a true disaster recovery situation, I'm sure you'll agree, any minute will count. Couple other things that are important as well. You do have the ability to manage multiple AWS accounts within a single installation of Cloud Protection Manager. You just simply allow Cloud Protection Manager to dip into each of these accounts and perform backups in them. We also have the option to go cross-account. That's how we perform that cross-account disaster recovery. You also have the option to define who gets to use Cloud Protection Manager. That's that multi-tenancy, and you can create different types of users, and we even support identity service providers. So if you use Active Directory Federation services or any single sign-on solution which speaks SAML, that's going to work just fine. Also, reporting. David did speak about this. So I have the ability to create very detailed reporting, audit reports per user, per my entire user population, backup reports. If I have an auditor and I want to give them access to the information, or maybe I want to have more insight in what's actually going on, which instances, which volumes, and maybe exactly which snapshots are we using. Also, one thing that I can absolutely guarantee you, because it happens every single time when somebody starts using Cloud Protection Manager, is what are we not backing up using Cloud Protection Manager? And you have a report for that right here, Unprotected Resources Report. But we also have the option to inverse that question. What are we backing up? Well, that would be the Protected Resources Report as well. And we also have the option to alert you to when things are happening. That's the notifications. We use Amazon SNS for that purpose. So if you want to send out a nice daily summary, thumbs up, everything's going fine, you can make that happen. And if things aren't going so fine, thumbs down, and you also have the option to trigger alerts. Let's say a region is down, that's why we can't back up from it. That would be alert worthy, and you would immediately find out about it. Now, Cloud Protection Manager is not a software as a service solution, which has a lot of advantages for you because it means that you're not reliant on some servers being up and running in order to perform backups and restores. And also, you're not sharing the software with any customers because it belongs to you. It's in your environment. And as I mentioned before, we don't process the data. We don't turn the data into some weird proprietary format that nobody can read other than our software, and you're going to be shackled to us forever. It's not going to happen. And we also showed you, that was the mind-blowing bonus feature, Cloud Protection Manager has the ability to back up itself. So you just go ahead, create a policy called CPM data. That's hard-coded into the product. You don't even need to configure it. See, the configuration buttons are missing. But I can configure disaster recovery. So when I create a disaster recovery backup off the configuration data in another region, then when I spin up Cloud Protection Manager blank in that region, it gives you the option to import my backup into your newly spun up version. So as I mentioned before, it takes about 90 seconds. And within that time frame, you have the ability to recover everything you see here on the screen. Backup monitor, policy, scheduling, auditing, reporting, and of course, most importantly, your recover buttons. Remember earlier when we did a recovery of a single instance? Doesn't matter if we're recovering 1 instance or 20 instances, because the recovery time stays exactly the same. Cloud Protection Manager has the ability to recover multiple instances at the same time. The moment we hit that recover command, we're actually using the AWS infrastructure, the full speed and agility of the AWS infrastructure to recover the entire production environment if you'd like us to. All right, so let's move back to our slides. Now, a few of our customer success stories. Goodwill Industries. Goodwill has had disaster recovery situations in the past, pre-Cloud Protection Manager, which would shut off their point of sale systems. That's all in the past now. Goodwill can recover their entire IT infrastructure within minutes in an entirely different region. Notre Dame is also an interesting story. And Notre Dame estimated that the creation of a backup solution would cost them more than 4,000 man-hours. Then they found N2WS, which literally does everything they need right out of the box. Also interesting about them, I had a conversation with them in March 2018. One of their patches that they sent out went bad, real bad, and they were able to recover their entire infrastructure in less than 5 minutes. Cloudar is also an interesting one. It provides cloud backup as a service to their customers using N2WS. And the multi-tenancy feature that I talked about allows them to offer self-service portals for easy access for their customers. They have N2WS backup more than 200 AWS accounts and thousands of instances. Now, here's a collection of some of our customers. What you see here is Higher Learning, the makers of flavored sugar waters, space exploration, companies that keep trains and infrastructure moving, pharmaceutical companies, makers of guided missile systems. They all utilize and trust Cloud Protection Manager to keep their data available at a drop of a hat. Also, award-winning backup and recovery. We are a 5-star top-rated backup and restore solution. Don't just take our word for it. Stevie American Business Awards, UK Cloud Awards, National Technology Awards say so too. Now, these are actual reviews from customers on the AWS marketplace. CPM is a game changer. CPM saves you money and face in a true outage. Also, we really like how NWS embraced the AWS metaphor for backup and DR. With Cloud Protection Manager, you don't have to dread the hyper growth and complexity of your data, because Cloud Protection Manager makes your data, well, hyper available. Also, the file level restore. Nothing is nicer when you're able to get to specific resources and you get to retrieve exactly what you need in the least amount of time possible. So now Q&A time.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. That was really great. And for those who missed it in the beginning, you can look out for the recording of this webinar, as well as your infrastructure credits within 7 business days. And for next steps, for those looking to experience premium features of N2WS, and well, they can spin up a 30-day free trial, and this will give you access to all of our enterprise level features. And the good news is after 30 days, your fully featured trial will convert to our free edition. And there you'll be able to utilize all of the great features that David and Sebastian talked about in this webinar. So now Q&A is open, and we have quite a few questions already. Let's start with are backups encrypted?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll take that one. So Cloud Protection Manager does not change how the data is stored. So if your data, your volumes, or whatever you're storing is encrypted, then Cloud Protection Manager won't change the state of that data. That's what I was talking about earlier. Cloud Protection Manager doesn't care if the data is encrypted. It even has the ability to back up encrypted data across regions and even across accounts using the KMS encryption keys from AWS.
Great, thanks, Sebastian. David, this one's for you. How can NWN help me if I'm just starting my migration to AWS?
Certainly, NWN can help you whether you are just thinking about or have started a migration to AWS. Now, typically, to begin such an engagement, an NWN account executive and a solutions architect would meet with the customer to discuss the desired state, right? Where do you want to go? We would also assess the state of the current environment. And then a roadmap would be laid to get you from where you are to where you want to be. And once the roadmap is laid down, NWN professional services engineers would be engaged to help the customer deploy the technologies required to support the AWS migration. Additionally, NWN managed services engineers can provide ongoing post-deployment management of the environment.
Great. Thank you, David. So this is about Oracle databases. Can I consider N2WS to back up an Oracle database?
Yeah, absolutely. Cloud Protection Manager doesn't really care what you're backing up, but I know what the question is about. It's about application consistent backup because, well, when I'm backing up databases, of course I want the backups to be application consistent. Well, Cloud Protection Manager gives you the best of both worlds. So we use snapshot capability, which makes us so blazingly fast, recovery and backup. But at the same time, we also have the ability to perform application consistent backups. And N2WS is capable of backing up Oracle databases with an application consistent backup. It's as granular as you'd like it to be.
Great. Can I resize my EC2 instance to a different type? And are there any limits on this?
That's an interesting one as well. Remember when I showed that we can do a recovery of resources off a volume? Well, as I showed, it doesn't matter. You can actually make changes to this. So if you're recovering a volume, you can make changes to this. If you want to change the type of an entire instance that you're recovering, yeah, why not just ignore that step where I have to recover and then resize it? No, I can actually resize it as I'm performing the recovery. So that's possible as well.
Yep.
Great. Here's a good one. Will N2WS merge its environment with Veeam and create a single pane of glass when looking at backups? We support Office with AWS and on-prem servers.
That's a good one. So this is actually really good timing because a new version of Cloud Protection Manager is literally right around the corner. I believe it's going to be Monday. You'll actually be able to pick it up in the AWS Marketplace. It's version 2.4. Version 2.4 provides the first true collaboration between Veeam Backup and Replication and Cloud Protection Manager. So the two products won't share a single management console, but they will share a common file system. So the backups that Cloud Protection Manager produces and sneak preview S3, you will also be able to use Veeam Backup and Replication to actually turn these backups that Cloud Protection Manager produces and turn them back into on-prem servers, Azure Cloud servers, Google Cloud servers, VMware servers. So that's the first step. But ultimately, yeah, I'm sure we'll have a single pane of glass for all of the products.
Great. Is there a mechanism to prevent the replacement of a healthy instance?
So, absolutely. So what happens is Cloud Protection Manager doesn't really overwrite an instance. That's not possible because AWS would keep you from doing this. Every single instance has a unique identifier. That's the instance ID. So in that case, what you could do is, this is what we were talking about, the cloning feature. I have the ability to perform a recovery of an instance. And essentially what would happen is it would give me the ability to basically create a clone of the instance. You're never going to overwrite an instance. So you're never going to be in that situation, ooh, I accidentally clicked that button and now I'm back in a version of my instance from 3 weeks ago. So that's never going to happen. Now, in case of a complete outage, let's say your instance is gone. Somebody intentionally or unintentionally deleted an instance. Yeah, absolutely. Cloud Protection Manager can then go ahead and replace that instance for all intents and purposes, because we have the ability to recreate the instance with exactly the same configuration up to and including the same IP address.
Okay, great. And here's one about audit logs. If multiple user accounts exist within CPM, is there an audit log of their actions?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I'll take that one as well. That's for the multi-tenancy. So as the root admin user, I have access to everything, every report, every audit information. But if you set up Cloud Protection Manager as a multi-tenancy system, and I have separate customers who shouldn't even know about each other, they have their own auditing, their own reporting, their own notifications. But yes, everything that happens within Cloud Protection Manager, as the root admin user and any delegate defined by me, I would be able to see everything.
Okay, and here's one about RDS. The recovery of the RDS database can be done for only 1 DB, or must the entire server be recovered?
So an RDS instance, what Cloud Protection Manager would do is it would recover the entire RDS instance. So it wouldn't pick and choose particular databases. Now that being said though, if you only have the need to recover a particular database, or gosh, heaven forbid, a particular table within a database, you can do that. The way our customers usually do that is because Cloud Protection Manager is so fast, you can recover an entire instance probably in 30 seconds. I mean, even if it's huge, let's say it's several terabytes, it's going to be a minute or two. So you can recover the entire RDS instance, and then you can use native tools to pick and choose particular databases or even particular tables to recover.
Okay, David, this one is for you. Can NWN help manage my AWS backups on an ongoing basis?
Certainly. We are a managed service provider, so NWN has a team of highly trained engineers in our our NOC near Boston, and they're there 24/7, and they are there to provide the highest level of customer service to our customers. So certainly we can help with managing AWS backups on an ongoing basis.
Great. Is N2WS available on GovCloud?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We are available in GovCloud, and you probably heard about it a couple of days ago. Now a new region of GovCloud was released as well. And the new version of Cloud Protection Manager will also support the new region of GovCloud as well.
Yes, so following up on that one, we have another question. I use the free version currently, and since GovCloud is available now in the East Coast region, can I use this to migrate from west to east?
Well, yes. When the new region, or actually the new region is already available, once the new version of Cloud Protection Manager is out, then we also support that new GovCloud region, and you'll be able to perform disaster recovery cross regions then as well, just as you would with all the regular standard editions of Cloud Protection Manager.
Okay, and can I assign multiple schedules to a single policy?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, if you want to create that grandfather father son methodology, so if I want to create, let's say, a 5-minute backup, so I can go back in time in 5-minute intervals. But at the same time, let's say I'm a bank, I need to retain my backups for 7 years. Well, that's crazy. I'm not going to retain 5-minute backups for 7 years. So what you would do then is you would create different schedules. I would perform backups every 5, 10, 15 minutes over the course of, let's say, 24 hours. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to create a daily backup, then a weekly backup, and a monthly backup. And then my monthly backups I would keep for 84 months, which is then going to give me compliance that I'm keeping my backups for 7 years. At the same time, that will make sure that I'm compliant, I'm keeping my backups, but at the same time, I'm not paying for backups I really don't need. So I have the maximum coverage over the course of 24 hours, but I also don't pay for any backups I don't actually need. So yeah, you can certainly do that. You can associate multiple schedules to a policy.
Okay. Does N2WS help with data stored in EFS or S3?
Yes. So with EFS, Cloud Protection Manager does have the ability to back up EFS volumes as well, with pretty much the same graphical user interface that we're already providing for regular volumes, regular instances, RDS. Now, S3, we don't back up S3 buckets. But what we will do with the new version, as I said, it's just around the corner, it's just about to release, we'll be able to back up your EBS data, your instances, your volumes into an S3 bucket.
And can I have different retentions configured in different regions using a single policy?
Not with a single policy. So because the retention is defined by the policy, so what you would do then is if you have different needs for your policies, different retention periods, you would then create multiple policies. But it's not difficult to do. And that's actually what David was talking about the tagging ability. Because I can use the tags to define which policies are going to be used to back up any given resource in my AWS account. And this tag can also be used to define multiple policies. As a matter of fact, as kind of a bonus information, you even have the ability to push configuration settings off each backup through the tagging ability as well. So yeah, you can, but you would use the tagging ability.
Okay, here's an interesting one. How does N2WS work with auto scaling, and do you even need it?
So, well, auto scaling means different things to different people. So one of the things that some customers of ours do is they dynamically spin up instances as needed. So they break down and destroy instances, and then, of course, they also back up that information. Cloud Protection Manager does support that. So when instances break down and they're no longer needed, then there's not going to be chaos. You're not going to be completely bombarded with information. Hey, an instance is missing or information is suddenly missing. Cloud Protection Manager has, I don't want to say an AI functionality, but it's smart enough to realize what you're actually trying to accomplish. So yes, that would work as well.
Okay, and a question about recovery. Does this instant recovery depend on where my data is stored? For example, if I have data on Glacier, can that be instantaneous?
No, data recovery out of Glacier is never going to be instantaneous. I mean, that's the whole purpose of Glacier. And the information is stored away for a long time, and that's basically how AWS makes money. They're going to sell you different tiers of data. So you have the EBS data, then you have the S3 data, then you have even different tiers in S3, and then you have the Glacier data. Cloud Protection Manager 2.4, I think that's where that is scaled towards, does have the ability to recover straight out of S3. But the recovery out of S3 takes a little bit longer than the data recovery out of EBS, which is okay because my immediate recover need, well, I'm going to keep that in EBS. I'm going to keep that in snapshots because I want to be able to recover within seconds. But then again, if I'm keeping my monthly backups or my annual backups in S3 or even in Glacier, yeah, it's okay because nobody's going to complain that, oh, the recovery from S3 took 10 minutes and the recovery from regular EBS only took 1 minute. Well, if we're talking about long-term storage of data, then 10 minutes recovery isn't that bad, especially considering how long it used to take. Remember, it used to take a RTO of a day, 8 hours, 4 hours, used to be regarded as really great, leading edge. With Cloud Protection Manager, as I said, the recovery time is seconds, and even if you're recovering from S3, yeah, it's going to be a few minutes longer.
Okay, we have time only for a few more. Let's talk about pricing. How does pricing work with N2WS? Are you charged based on usage?
So the pricing of Cloud Protection Manager works by the instances that you're backing up. So there's different categories how we do the pricing. It's mainly based on how many instances are you backing up, how many AWS accounts do you want to back up, how many Cloud Protection Manager users do you need? So other than my admin user, do I actually want to create this into a self-service portal with multiple users being able to use the feature? And then last but not least, it is also defined by RDS storage that I need. And this has absolutely nothing to do with how many backups you're performing. Go ahead, produce as many backups as you want. It's the accumulated amount of information that you're backing up off the databases themselves. It has nothing to do with the backups themselves. It's really only the data that you're backing up from the RDS service. And also, I should probably mention, we don't keep our pricing a secret whatsoever. What you're seeing here on the screen right now, the free trial, n2ws.com/trial, you can actually go to our website. There's the pricing tab, and you can take a look at it. So we are very open and forward with all of the pricing information.
Great. Okay, so we're going to have to wrap up the questions here. It's been extremely engaging. Thanks so much, everyone. There's actually just two more, actually very important questions that I want to get to. And someone asks, are we going to reInvent? And also, how can we contact NWN? So these are great questions. So we have information on how to speak to both companies, both face-to-face and virtually. We're always happy to chat. N2WS will be at booth 1011 at reInvent. And as always, we have great swag to give away. We have our birdcage game where you can win a drone. It's always fun. So please stop by and talk with us. And David will also be at reInvent. His contact information is here. And feel free to reach out. He'll be more than happy to talk to you about how NWN can provide cloud solutions for your business. And a huge, huge thank you goes out to David and Sebastian and everyone in the audience today. Thank you for your time. And just so you know, You can access all of our webinars on our website. We have tons of documentation, lots of resources, so please take a look. Thanks, guys, so much. Have a great rest of the week.